because I mean, when we first started planning it, Jimmy said to me, Jimmy said, all right, it's up to you to sell it to the community. Well, and as I said earlier, I had gone to the board of the Property Owners Association, so it kind of fell in my lap to do that. And it was not in the beginning, but grudgingly the community got behind it because it was for the fire department, for our new fire truck. And nobody could argue with that, or everyone supported the notion of raising money for that cause. But they weren't so thrilled with the idea of the event, because you have to remember, those of you who go back to those days know that at that time there were two very big issues in the community, and one was noise, and it was a big issue with FIPHPS. Homeowners were always complaining about the noise coming from the house parties that were going on. The co-ops complained about the music coming from the sandpiper and the pavilion, and it got some of the arguments and got pretty heated between neighbors, and we were always kind of interceding. I mean, trying to keep peace in the community for those who wanted to come out here and just have peace and quiet. I used to hear, I want to be able to get up in the morning and just hear the birds. And I remember one guy came and complained because of his neighbor's wind chime. And so the notion, I mean, in house parties with loud music coming from next door or down the walk didn't go over with everybody out here at that time. And the idea of some big party going on all night long was not met universally with, wasn't accepted universally in the beginning. The other big issue was day trippers. The community had a real thing about, because the Pines had become, such a glamorous kind of play. Everybody wanted to come here, and there were so many people that had started coming over in the day to tea dance, and the bay would just be full of boats from people from the Manny who would anchor and offshore and wade in and come to, and they kind of like took over tea dance away from the community. So there was kind of this anti-day tripper sentiment in the community, and I think the idea, people were afraid that 3,000 people coming to, we'd be bringing in all these people from somewhere else, and that was not what, people were very opposed to that at the time. The reason we put it, I mean, today when they do the Pines Party, for example, the events on the beach, a lot of times they will select a site at where the beach is the widest. Well, we weren't even thinking in those terms. We put it at the far end, right at the edge of the east end of the community, so it would be as far away from most people as possible. And the two guys who had the last house on the end were really quite upset about it, and they wrote a letter to FIPHPS, and so the president turned it over to me and said, okay, you deal with this. And fortunately, it was two guys that I knew and had known since I had been out here, so I went to them and kind of talked them through it and everything, and got them to come around. But I can't say that everybody in the beginning, other than the fact that they supported the notion of the fire truck having, the fire department having a new fire truck, loved the idea of an all-night party with 3,000 people. And I think we sold 3,000 tickets and held 300 back for, so there were like 3,300, if I remember, and then another, including the volunteers and everything there. So there was probably a total of 3,500. But the last week of the week before the party, I did an interview with Newsday, and one of the things was to emphasize in that interview that we were sold out and that there would be no more tickets. And I remember I kind of exaggerated a bit and it said that we had a security force of 55 people and 8-foot fences around. Well, everybody knows snow fencing is not 8 feet tall, but it helped, you know, keep a lot of people coming who might have come over and you know, to spend the night. Although there were probably 200-300 who, without tickets, who just came to the beach and hung out outside the fences.
The most important aspect, because I've spent a year writing this book, just like a year planning for this party, but the most important aspect of this for me, for young people, is the age of volunteerism. You know, here in that era, people put a call out and 25 people showed up and said, what do we need? Versus today, where it doesn't happen as often like that. The other part of it is the cultural change that happened. This party changed the culture of this community forever. So that's why this story is so important to me, and it's so important, like I said, for young people to read this. But getting back to Miss Jolie, let's talk a little bit about that day and what, you know, yes, you were told that, but like the real deal, when you got there, and like what was this like, this magical island that you arrived at?
I first want to say that I'm very, very grateful that Donna Summer was so busy. God, where do I start? This day, first of all, when you start a career and you're only 16 and your record is showing a lot of enthusiasm amongst DJs, and you're kind of already in a cloud, right? Because, you know, and I didn't know New York. It was my first time here, and I didn't even know that Fire Island existed. I'm from Montreal, Canada. I never knew. And so when they explained to me that it was a gay community, and when I got here, it was absolutely something magical. And I felt it as soon as I put my foot on that boardwalk. And I will never forget that moment. Second of all, what was absolutely beautiful to me was the acceptance of everybody and the love that I could feel on this island that was nowhere else. It was like that for me. And the freedom that all the gays and, you know, were experimenting, like this was their place, you know, they could feel that liberty. And I'm going to go back to being in your house. I want to thank you for supplying this, because it was absolutely, first of all, the house was amazing. And I remember, I'm going to tell you a little bit of details. When I got here, I went straight to the house with my suitcase. I probably had 5 suitcases for one show. I was so nervous. But I remember that I used to wear curlers to curl my hair before an event. And today we have the curler, you know, the hot curlers. Back then it was the old one with the pick, you know. And I remember my mom telling me, France, you need to get some sleep because the show's really late. It's I think I sang at what, 1:45 in the morning or 1:30 in the morning? 1:15? Thank you for Mr. Precision here. Thank you for the memories, by the way. And I'm cutting it. I want to thank you for being here today and being interested in the history. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so my mom tells me, you got to get some sleep, and I got the curlers on, right? And I'm going
Talk a
like
little
this,
bit
right?
about the sound check and like get it walking onto that stage that afternoon and seeing this disco that they built on the beach. What was that like?
I don't remember. I don't remember because I remember doing a sound check, but I don't remember seeing the stage. I don't remember seeing the tents that you guys built behind the stage for
They
us.
may not have been up at that.
Oh, that's why I don't remember.
They were working to the very end, to the last.
Okay, so that's why I don't remember, okay. The stage was up, but But I know that you know, the big white things that you had on the, you know, like the, how do you, yeah, that wasn't up yet, right?
They couldn't stay up because the wind was too strong, but.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't remember, but I remember my preparation. And I remember trying to get some sleep with those curlers on, going back to the curlers, because you go like this and you're trying to make a little space in between your curlers so you can rest your head on the pillow. To make a long story short, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. And the whole experience for me is, I will always remember how much love I received when I stepped on that stage. And you guys are going to make me cry talking about it.
Let's talk.
I ain't finished, baby. I remember my mom and everybody around me being very excited, and I was too, and I was very nervous, and I wanted to faint just before I got on stage. But once I put my foot on stage and I heard the voices and the screams and the love and the applause from, I heard it was 5,000 people. You probably, I'm wrong, right? But it's a good story, isn't it? 3,500 screaming and dancing and almost in awe of my music, and because I was a new artist. That made me who I am today. And it's weird to say this, but that automatic acceptance of my music and me and as a singer will always remain one of the greatest moments in my life. Always. So I want to bring up also that there's a lot of people that were part of that party that are no longer with us. And I would like to thank them for being there, and their legacy lives on, right? They live on in our hearts. And we lost a lot.
That's what this book is about.
Yeah.
This is who we're honoring.
Yeah.
It's honoring the many friends, Ron, especially in his story, Jimmy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so I didn't want to.
Yes.
I didn't want to be on a negative note, but it's nice to talk about the people that were part of this party that no longer are with us. And so I want to thank a good thank you to everyone that accepted me doing a show here. I know my label. You spoke to the label, right? Yeah. Prelude Records. And they invited me here, and so, hey, thank you.
And let me tell you, that was on a Saturday night. We went back to the city on Monday. That week in the city, every radio station in the city was playing Come to Me. And it was amazing how that record, how that just took off like crazy. And suddenly you heard it everywhere for the next couple of weeks. It was immediate. And I think you sold 75,000 units in like a couple of days. I mean, it was like kind of a phenomenon.
That's what he told me.
Let me set the scene. It was the time when there was seamless intros from one song to another, right? And so we had no idea that it was exactly when France was going to go on. But so there was some song that Howard Merritt was playing, and then he sneakily just melded in the beginning strings of her song, and all of a sudden this vision in white, and then Norma Kamali dress appeared on stage, and it was like an angel. She was so marvelous and so young and so sweet, and I had tears in my eyes.
And she's lucky that she stayed with Walter. because everyone else was down at my house. And the Ritchie family they were fantastic. The girls they came out they didn't just come out on Saturday for sound check. They came out on Friday. They wanted to have the whole weekend. And they got right into it, and they were great. And, but after the closing performer was Bonnie Pointer. And Bonnie was, she had her big hit in 1978. So it was a classic, and so she closed, she was the closing performer. And it was a couple of years after she had broken away from, the Pointer Sisters with her sisters. And, but she wasn't happy with the house that she was staying in. And so after she had performed, we told Clarence Fountain, we'll take her to our house, put her in the back bedroom, which was my bedroom at the time. And my house at one time had been owned by Mrs. Rockefeller. And so I said to, just tell her that she's sleeping in Mrs. Rockefeller's bedroom. And, so she was very impressed with that. She got there and in full diva. Everything was cool, and I wasn't there, but I was getting reports. The minute she found out that the Ritchie family was out in my guest house, she was not having it. So, I mean, we had all kinds of drama with her. Well, I wouldn't have wished that on Walter. So we got her on an early phase, as quickly as we could. We got her on a ferry off the island. Speaking for music and performers, I've also told people that it gets overlooked a little bit. A big part of the party was a casino, which was enormously successful. And because the party started at sunset, and so the dance floor didn't open until midnight. So during the beginning of the party, there were 5 food pavilions, and we had incredible food there. I mean, that came from. We had a couple of catering groups from the city who had like really gourmet foods. We had like a cheese shop in the city that had wonderful things. There was one that had another one that had like little roast beef sandwiches, and another one. Food was great, so people came and ate and drank, and then went to the casino. And in the casino, we had Paul Jabara perform, playing the piano and singing and entertaining. And Paul was a great entertainer, and he Brooklyn boy who came here every weekend. We all knew him, but he had just earlier that year won the Grammy and the Oscar for Last Dance. And of course, he had started out on Broadway in Hair and Jesus Christ Superstar, and then became famous as a songwriter. He had a hit out that summer, a big hit with Barbra Streisand, and then later, of course, he wrote "It's Raining Men" and some of the classic music from that era. But he was, just kind of entertaining in a piano in the casino as people gambled, and we actually made a lot of money in that casino that night, which went a long ways towards raising the money for the fire truck.
I think this is what people don't understand. Like, young people are so attracted to the 70s, I think because it was pretty fabulous here. And the community and the people that were here, people like Paul Jabara, could come here and be comfortable. It was no cell phones. Nobody was taking a picture. You weren't on Instagram in 5 seconds. So it was really a hub for that, but also for creativity, and that is part of what made this party so special. Let's talk a little bit about the aftermath and how people, we were talking about it before, what you said about France's song, but what was the community's reaction? What was the talk going on after the party? Anybody's after.
Well, everyone recognized that it was a huge success, and I think they felt that something very important had happened in bringing the community together. I think it was significant because it was a fundraiser. And that was unusual because even though we had so many parties, you know, for all the years that had preceded that, I mean, the big party, people had the parties, you know, private parties for their friends and their neighbors, and they weren't to raise money for anything. And so I think it sort of ushered in a little bit the concept of which became very useful during the 80s when we had to start raising money once the health crisis hit. I mean, people recognized that we had the ability to raise money for causes that were important to our community. And so I think that showed us as a community what we could do if we needed to raise money for something that was important to us. And so I think that was kind of an important thing.
It was a huge success. There was no discussion about that. It wasn't great. And Ron is right. All of a sudden, you had to come to Fire Island with a lot of 20s in your pocket because every minute there was a new party for a new cause. And but it was really sweet that the fact that this was talked about for years and years and years and years, and it took 35 years later to have the next community party that we all put together, and it was clam bake. And it was just 5 years ago that was the second really community party that the whole island got together to do. And before I die, I want to do it one more time.
I think that one thing that sometimes gets a little overlooked and perhaps gets forgotten a bit is this would never have happened without the fire department. And it was a huge risk in a way for the fire department to get behind this crazy notion and to support it. And we could never have pulled it all off if all of the members of the fire department hadn't pitched in all kinds of ways to make it happen. When Jim Meade first came home from a fire department meeting and said, guess what, I told the fire department we would have a big party all night on the beach to raise money for a fire truck. I went like, are you crazy? I mean, and he said, and the more he talked about it, he said, no, the fire department's really behind it. And he said, and they're willing, and I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah. And I said, Clarence? Is Clarence Fountain gonna work? And he said, yeah, Clarence is. And I said, okay, if all of these people in the fire department will get behind this, because I'm not sure we could pull it off ourselves, because the first thing that crossed my mind was, how in the hell do you get electricity on a beach to power the lights and the sound system and all, because nothing like this had ever been done before. Parties on the beach before that had been done in the daytime. So a nighttime party was an undertaking that was unprecedented, really. And but there were a lot of people in the fire. Every single person in the fire department was on the committee and was involved. And so it's something that this party is very important to the history of the fire department in this community, because I think it changed the fire department forever too, because after that summer, many of us, like Scott and myself, we joined the fire department and became firefighters, volunteer firefighters, as a result of working together on that event. And now, I guess probably maybe the majority of the firefighters today are maybe gay men. I don't. But it really is, it's truly a huge landmark in the history of the Pines Volunteer Fire Department.
I just want to say I'm so happy and touched to be part of the history. I just want to say that I was only 16, I started to, I have a lot of gay friends, and I left here so much richer as a person. And because I had a lot of friends that were gay and got educated about the community, I became really a better person for it. And so I want to thank all the LGBTQ, P2C4, I want to thank them all because you've made me grow.
I have one more question. Before we wrap up, we want to go around, and we can't do events like this if you don't donate and support us. We don't charge people, but we ask you to support us. So we're going to send some volunteers around. We do have the book in the back also that we're going to be selling. France is going to perform at 6 o'clock at Tea. We have the incredible Robbie Leslie, who has supported us through all of our events. We love him to death. And we will have our pop-up store there selling the book and our t-shirts. And this is how we make money to do this. We said it last year at our incredible Studio 54 event that we had the largest audience that Whitehall had ever seen. So thank you and all you guys who came, and Scott Major. But this is how we do these things. We have with a little ferry that pushes on. But in talking to people about the book throughout the last year, especially the editor of Fire on the News, he said to me, you know, that would make a great movie. So I asked my peeps here, who's going to play you in the movie that we're going to be making?
Meryl Streep.
She'll win another Oscar. Actually,
Ryan Reynolds. He's 6'2", he's Canadian, and he's handsome. Ryan Reynolds.
oh, I like that.
I actually like Meryl Streep.
She's busy.
My first choice would be Lady Gaga, but she's too old. Already, can you believe that? Not because I was 16. I think Ariana Grande would be really cool because she's so petite and so cute, and I don't know. I just thought, I'm sorry? Miley Cyrus? Oh, that's a good one. Whoever you want, it doesn't matter as long as it plays me. I don't care. Yeah, just make the movie.
Well, as much as I'd like to say Jake Gyllenhaal, and because I had thick hair then and I slicked it back kind of the way he did, but like he does now, but he's a little too old to play me at that point because I was 34 and he's too short because I'm 6'3", I'm tall like Scott. So maybe, I didn't have the body of Thor, but maybe Chris Hemsworth. Because he would be my age and he would be my height, and I think he could grow a big mustache.
For any casting agents out there are thinking about it, I'll talk to you later.
I just wanted to say a couple of things in oversight of listening to what's going on. So I can tell you that this party represented a collaboration of, especially in the fire service, of how people work together. And I don't like to use the word gay or straight because it's been my opinion in the community, in the fire department, we've always worked together. And whenever there's an event, nobody puts up anything. They just, what do you need me to do? What do we have to take care of? We don't have that problem. I mean, I remember a fire in 1985 when Fern and I was the chief of the fire department. And, it was a really big fire. It was out of control. And I remember at the very end, we got it all under control. And he walked over to me, of course, you know, he's a couple feet taller than me. And he puts his arm around me and he says to me, "Well, kid, you did a good job." And, you know, this whole situation going forward, even, you know, 40 years later, it really set the standards of all of us working together. And I think that's what really came apart, you know, came together, what we have accomplished as a community. And, you know, not that it would be, you know, whatever. But I want to say it's a really good experience. I'm still a member of the fire service. I still give back, you know, I still do the things that I like to do. And I really don't have a problem with working with anybody. Everybody's, you know, we all work together, and that's part of what this whole thing was about.
So I want to say thank you to PJ for giving us a space to do this and giving this organization a place to grow. I really appreciate that. Steve, you were incredible. I love you. These incredible people who are part of our history, and you know me, I love my history. We do have the book in the back, and if you want, we can sign it. So I just want to let you know that. And thank you guys for coming and supporting. Putting a dance on like this very, very difficult. It's hard. But I appreciate it.
And thank you.
Yes.